What would you do if the janitor everyone ignored sat down at your company gala and defeated the billionaire CEO in just 19 moves? Come on, she's just the maid. Let her play, we could use some entertainment. The words slipped casually from Julian Carter's mouth, but in that room, they landed like a slap. The executive lounge on the 50th floor of Veritas Corp's Chicago headquarters sparkled with luxury crystal glasses, walnut panels, laughter that echoed in polished corners. A few people chuckled. Someone from HR Sharon Blake smirked. A VP raised a curious brow. And then there was her, Jasmine Carter, leaning against her cleaning cart in a black janitor's uniform with a name tag so faded you could barely read it, gloves in one pocket, calm eyes like still water. No reaction, no smile. No one knew that Jasmine once played chess on national circuits. That at 13, she was called the Rook Whisperer. That was before her father's back broke on a construction site. Before her mother's kidneys failed. Before the scholarship vanished and the chessboard got packed away with her childhood dreams. Now, she mopped floors while CEOs gave TED-style talks about innovation. "Step right up," Julian said, gesturing to the chessboard in the middle of the room. "We've got a seat open for tonight's guest of honor." The laughter swelled again. Jasmine didn't speak. She walked slowly, pushing the cart aside, her boots quiet on the marble. She stopped at the board and looked it over, eyes tracing the pieces like they were old friends she hadn't seen in years. "She knows how the pieces move, right?" someone muttered. More laughter. Jasmine sat down. "I'll take black," she said calmly. Julian blinked. "Feeling bold, huh?" She didn't reply. Instead, she began resetting the board. Her fingers moved with a kind of muscle memory, no flash, no drama, just quiet precision. She didn't look at him. She didn't need to. Julian opened with practiced Flair King's gambit. Sharp and flashy, the kind of move you play when you want to look impressive. Jasmine countered like water hitting stone. Quiet, measured, unstoppable. 5 moves in, Julian furrowed his brow. 10 moves in, the room got noticeably quieter. By move 13, he paused. By move 19, his king was trapped. Checkmate. She stood up. "Thank you for the game, Mr. Carter. I'll get back to cleaning now." And just like that, she turned and walked away. No mic drop, no bow, just the soft squeak of her shoes against the marble. The elevator doors closed behind her, but something stayed behind in the room. It wasn't shock. It wasn't even embarrassment. It was something heavier. Respect. Julian remained seated, staring at the board. He didn't sip his bourbon. He didn't joke. He didn't touch the king that still sat there, cornered, defeated. All he could hear was the humming of the ventilation system and the fading sound of her footsteps. A maid. A maid had just dismantled him in front of his entire leadership team. And somehow, it didn't feel like he lost a game. It felt like he'd been seen. Seen in a way that none of these people in suits and titles ever truly saw him. That night, long after the wine was poured and the room was cleared, Julian was still sitting there. The junior assistant hovered. "Should I pack the board, sir?" Julian didn't respond. He just stood up and left. He didn't sleep that night. Not really. The penthouse, usually pristine and calm, felt suffocating. He sat at his kitchen counter, city lights bleeding through the windows. Opened his laptop, searched her name. Jasmine Carter. Dozens of results. None of them her. No LinkedIn, no Twitter. No photos that matched her face. He dug deeper. Chess blogs. Tournament archives. Federation records. Nothing. It was like she had never existed in the world of competitive chess. But that wasn't possible. You don't play like that without years of grind. That wasn't casual play. That was mastery built on hardship. He found one grainy photo from a 2009 Southside Youth Invitational. A little girl with a braid behind one ear. Same tilted head, same stillness in the eyes. Name below, Jasmine J. That was all. Julian closed the laptop. Ran his hands over his face. What the hell just happened? It wasn't about the loss. He'd lost before. But this wasn't a loss. This was a revelation. Someone, the world dismissed. Someone. His own company laughed at had just proven she could wipe the floor with him, without ever raising her voice, without asking permission. Without even trying to be impressive, she just was. And that shook something in him deeper than strategy or pride. He didn't just want a rematch, he wanted to understand how he never saw her coming, and what else? Or who else? He might be blind to Julian. Carter didn't go home that night to celebrate or unwind. He went home to unravel. The city glittered outside his penthouse windows, but inside, everything felt dim. Off. Wrong. He sat at the kitchen island, still wearing the same tailored suit from earlier, now crumpled at the sleeves. A half-empty glass of scotch sat untouched beside his laptop. The chessboard was still in his mind. Move 19 pieces. Checkmate. By a janitor. No, not a janitor. Jasmine Carter. He didn't know her, not really. But in less than 10 minutes, she'd told him everything he needed to know. She was brilliant, she was calm, and she'd been invisible until she wasn't. Julian opened his laptop and began searching. First, the basics. Jasmine Carter, Chicago. Hundreds of results. Wrong Jasmine. Wrong face, wrong life, no LinkedIn profile. No social media, no tournament records, just noise. He tried keywords, chess, Southside girl, prodigy, tournament. Still nothing. How could someone that sharp, someone who played like that, leave no trace? He dug deeper, into old PDF archives from the US Chess Federation. Youth tournaments from over a decade ago. Illinois State Middle School Championships. Nothing. But that couldn't be right. He knew that skill. That rhythm. The way she anticipated his tempo and flipped it against him. That was learned pain, not party-trick talent. Finally, at 3:07 a.m., he zoomed in on a blurry, black-and-white photo from the 2009 Southside Youth Invitational. In the back row, half in shadow, sat a girl with a tight braid and a calm, tilted head. Underneath, barely legible, Jasmine J. That was it, just an initial, but it was her. He leaned back in the chair and exhaled. A name, a game. And an entire life he suddenly realized he didn't understand. He closed the laptop, but the question didn't close with it. Why was she cleaning floors? Why wasn't she teaching, coaching, competing? Julian Carter could predict stock movement. He could read quarterly risk before the numbers hit the board, but he couldn't read her. That's what haunted him most. She had seen through him in one game, and he had never even noticed her. The next morning, he skipped 2 investor calls, showed up at Veraritos headquarters in the same black shirt he'd worn the night before. Sharon Blake, his executive assistant, gave him a look as he passed her desk. "You okay, sir?" "Fine," he said, sharper than he meant to. "Just keep the schedule light." He took the elevator alone, not the executive one. The service elevator. It smelled like old paint and cleaning fluid. Fluorescent lights flickered above. Pipes groaned behind thin walls. He passed janitors who paused mid-mop. A few maintenance workers looked confused. He ignored the stares. He was looking for her, but Jasmine wasn't on shift.
In the cleaning office, a clipboard showed her name, Jasmine Carter, off duty, 2 days, no phone number, no address.
No emergency contact, just a badge number and her shift hours. He thought about calling HR, then stopped. He already knew what would happen. Inappropriate use of internal systems. Possible harassment violation. He was the CEO. But in this case, power felt fragile. So he waited. 2 nights passed. On the 3rd, he returned to the 50th floor lounge, late, just before midnight. He left the chessboard out, reset it, white on his side. Waiting. The lights were low. The city buzzed outside like static. At 11:43 p.m. he heard it, the soft squeak of wheels. She entered like she always did, quiet, precise, unseen by most. But this time she saw him waiting, and she didn't flinch. Their eyes met. Stillness in hers, thunder in his. "I didn't mean to humiliate you," Julian said, voice quieter than he intended. "You didn't," she replied simply, pulling on gloves. "You asked for a game. I gave you one." He swallowed. "You're good." "Used to be," she said, wiping the edge of a glass table. He stepped toward the board. "Where'd you learn?" She didn't answer right away. She moved to a countertop, sprayed disinfectant, wiped slowly. "My dad taught me," she said. "He was a steel worker. Played in the park with the other guys after night shift. I used to sit and watch." She paused. "I played tournaments. Then I stopped." "Before high school?" "Why?" he asked. She turned her head slightly. "Because hospitals don't run on dreams. And little sisters don't feed themselves." Julian had no reply. She went back to her cart. He stepped forward. "Play again. Not for the crowd, not for laughs. Just me and you." She hesitated. The silence stretched between them like a draw. Then she walked over, sat down, pulled the black pieces toward her. "If you open with the king's gambit again," she said without looking up, "I'm flipping the board." Julian cracked a smile, then sat. This time the game moved slower. No showboating, no flares, just thought. Tension. Respect. She didn't crush him, but she didn't go easy either. 34 moves later, it was a draw. She stood. "I should mop before the wax sets." Julian looked at the board. "You're the most disciplined player I've ever faced." She shrugged. "Discipline's easy when the rest of your life is chaos." She pushed her cart away. At the door he called out, "Jasmine?" She stopped. "I'd like to play again." She nodded just once over her shoulder and disappeared into the night. But this time, Julian Carter wasn't left defeated. He was left changed. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like the one controlling the board. He felt like the piece. And deep down, part of him knew he didn't want to win. He wanted to learn. Julian Carter had closed deals worth billions. He'd negotiated with heads of state, sat across from global CEOs, and walked out with everything he wanted. But this time, he didn't want power. He wanted a rematch, not to prove himself, but to understand her. 3 nights in a row, he stayed late in the executive lounge. He made excuses to his team, told Sharon Blake he was reviewing architectural specs, said the new product line needed hands-on attention. No one questioned the CEO staying past midnight. They just assumed it was brilliance. Only Julian knew the truth. He was waiting for the maid who had dismantled him in 19 moves. The board was always set. White on his side, a single chair left open at 11:43 p.m. On the 3rd night, she came. No words, just the soft creak of her cart, the quiet roll of wheels across marble. She paused when she saw the board, and him. He stood. Not smug, not rehearsed, just real. "I didn't bring an audience," he said gently. "I'm not here to show off." She raised an eyebrow, didn't smile. "You want another game?" "I want an honest one." A breath passed. Then she walked over, pulled out the black pieces again. "If you try that Scandinavian defense," she said, "I'm not going to pretend I'm surprised." He smirked. "I was thinking Sicilian." She sat. "Don't flatter yourself." The match began. No champagne. No audience. Just two minds locked in strategy and silence. This time she didn't crush him. She let the tempo breathe, held back, then pressed. Let him struggle. Watched how he adapted. 34 moves in, Julian leaned back. Draw. Not a loss, not a win. Just balance. She stood. I need to mop this floor before the wax dries. He looked at her across the board. You're incredible. She shrugged. Discipline's easy when your life is chaos. She moved toward her cart. Jasmine, he called again. She stopped. I'd like to play again. She paused, then glanced over her shoulder. Leave the board set, and she walked out. Julian didn't move for a long time. The king piece sat in the center of the board untouched. This wasn't about checkmate anymore. This was something else, something alive. He didn't speak to anyone about Jasmine, not to Sharon, not to the board of directors. Not even to his therapist. Some truths didn't need explaining. They just needed protecting. So he created a space for her. Every night, he reset the board. No pressure. No announcements, just the invitation of a match. And every few nights she showed up. Not always to play. Sometimes she just cleaned in silence, but she never ignored him. Something shifted between them. A rhythm. A pattern. A respect that didn't need words, but when they did play, something electric happened. Not flirtation. Not rivalry, but two minds in full engagement. Her style was sharp, controlled, exact. His was strategic, sweeping, ambitious. They didn't just move pieces, they communicated. And somewhere in those matches, he realized he wasn't trying to win. He was trying to learn her language. One night, the room smelled like floor wax and silence. Mid-game, he asked the question he'd been holding back for weeks. Why are you still here? She didn't look up. You mean this job? He nodded. You could be coaching, competing. She placed her knight down slowly. Not everyone gets second chances handed to them in crystal tumblers and mahogany boardrooms, Mr. Carter. He had no response. She kept wiping a glass table near the corner. Her voice was steady. Stability is safer than chasing something that might disappear again. Julian watched her, not as an employee, not as a mystery, but as someone who'd spent a lifetime surviving a world built to ignore her. 3 days later, he did something unusual. He left the office at 4:30 p.m. No driver, no security, just his car, the road, and a destination he hadn't visited in years. Southside Chicago. The streets were cracked. The lights blinked early. He passed empty lots, boarded windows, and graffiti-stained signs. He found the old rec center near 53rd and Langley, the one Veraritos once promised to renovate, then quietly forgot. Inside, the paint peeled and the floors creaked, but something else was alive in there. The sound of plastic chess pieces. He followed it down the hall, and there she was. Jasmine knelt beside a low plastic table. A group of kids barely tall enough to see the board crowded around her. She showed them how to protect a backward pawn. One boy with missing front teeth stared at her like she was magic. She hadn't seen him yet, so Julian stood quietly near a crooked support beam, just watching. Not as a CEO. Not as someone important, just as someone in awe. She wasn't trying to survive in that moment. She was thriving. When class ended, a few of the kids noticed him. They whispered behind cupped hands. Jasmine turned, saw him, and rose slowly. You followed me? I asked around, he said. They said you volunteer here every Saturday. She crossed her arms. You stalk all your opponents, only the ones who make me question everything I thought I knew about strategy. She didn't laugh, didn't soften. Why are you really here? He hesitated, then pulled a folded flyer from his coat. Chicago Open Chess Tournament. Registration now open. You should enter, he said. She barely glanced at it.
I haven't played competitively in over a decade. You train every time we play. That's not the same. I already registered both our names, he said quietly. She blinked.
You what? No company name, no fanfare, just initials. She held the flyer in her hands, fingers folding it slowly. I'll consider it, she said, but only if we train on equal ground. No private coaches, no luxury sets. I play where you play. He nodded. And if you win? He asked. You stop treating me like a puzzle you need to solve. He nodded again. And if I win? She tucked the flyer into her jacket pocket. Then you'll understand why winning isn't the point. The alarm went off at 4:45 a.m. Jasmine Carter slapped at it without opening her eyes. She sat up in the dark, the cold air of early morning already biting at her skin. Her studio apartment smelled like lavender tea and worn-out floor polish. The same scent that had followed her for years. By 5:15, she was bundled up in a thrifted windbreaker, boots laced tight, and a battered canvas bag over one shoulder. Inside it, one wooden chess set and a thermos of weak coffee. She didn't need directions. She was meeting Julian Carter. Again. The cafe near Roosevelt and Wabash opened early for the commuter crowd. It smelled like burnt espresso, old vinyl seats, and the stories of 10,000 tired mornings. Julian was already there. In the back booth. No entourage, no luxury watch, just a black hoodie and a chipped ceramic mug in his hand. You're late, he said without looking up. I'm always late, Jasmine replied, sliding into the booth, especially when you open with that smug little Scandinavian defense. He cracked a smile. They didn't make small talk. They didn't need to. They just opened the board and played. It became their routine. 5 mornings a week. Before the sun rose. Before the city woke up. Before either of them had to pretend. They studied each other through the pieces. Opened old wounds and old strategies. Tore each other's openings apart. Sometimes they drew. Sometimes she won. Occasionally he did. But it was never about the win. It was about learning, understanding, bridging 2 very different worlds 1 game at a time. Julian brought books, real theory, Nimzovich, Polgar, Kasparov. He scribbled notes in the margins. Jasmine brought street smarts, instinct, memory shaped by pain, sharpened by necessity. She played like a fighter in the ring. He played like a tactician in the boardroom, and somewhere in the middle, their styles started to blur. They didn't just exchange moves, they exchanged philosophies. One morning, after she baited him into sacrificing his queen behind a careless pawn advance, he leaned back and rubbed his temples. I swear you're reading my thoughts. Jasmine sipped her coffee, eyes never leaving the board. I'm reading your habits, she said. You don't know how to be uncomfortable. That's your biggest weakness. He stared at her. I grew up uncomfortable. She moved a piece with a click. No. You grew up insulated. There's a difference. Later that day, Julian walked into the boardroom for a product meeting. Waiting for him was the head of communications, Logan Pierce. In her hands, a printed blog post. Have you seen this? She asked, laying it flat on the glass table. CEO mentors janitor for chess tournament progressive leadership or PR spin. Below the headline were blurry photos taken through the cafe window. Him and Jasmine, one of them mid-laugh, unfiltered. Raw. This wasn't sanctioned, Logan said tightly. The media is running with it. Julian didn't flinch. Good. Sir? I said good. They want to talk about class? Power? Second chances? Let them. She hesitated. This could be used against us. He looked her straight in the eyes. Then let them try. Meanwhile, Jasmine was facing her own storm. Someone slipped a folded note into her locker. No name, no signature. Just 3 words in block letters. Know your place. She stared at it. Didn't tear it, didn't scream, just folded it again. Put it in her pocket, walked to the sink, washed her hands, and went back to work. That evening, she arrived late to the rec center. The kids were already gathered. Coach Mr. Whitaker gave her a worried look. "You okay?" "I'm fine," she said too quickly. "You don't look fine." She dropped her bag and barked at one of the kids for a slow move. Naomi Brookshire, 9-year-old student, flinched. Jasmine never raised her voice. Not once in months of teaching. After class, she sat in the corner of the gym, hands clenched in fists against her knees. Then she heard the footsteps. Julian, again. But this time, he didn't say anything. He just leaned on the bleachers and waited. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle. "You didn't show this morning." "I know. I waited an hour." "I know." He stepped closer. "Talk to me." Her eyes burned as she looked up. "You don't get to ask me to talk," she said, her voice sharp. "Not when you get to walk into any room and be heard without even opening your mouth." He blinked. "What happened? I got a note. What did it say?" She exhaled hard. "It doesn't matter." "Yes, it does." She stood. "People don't like what they can't control, Julian." "You're used to being liked. I'm used to being erased." A pause. "But right now, I'm being noticed." "And not for the right reasons." He stayed silent. She continued. "I don't want to be your story. Your redemption arc, your PR miracle. You're not," he said. "Then why does it feel like I'm standing in your shadow every time I try to step into the light?" His face softened. "Then step out." She stared at him. "You think this is about you?" "I think," he said quietly, "I'm trying to get better because of you, not through you." "You're not the footnote, Jasmine." "I am." Her shoulders dropped, not in surrender, in weariness. "The tournament's in 3 weeks," she finally said. "I need space." "I need focus," he nodded. "Then I'll see you at the board. No more cafe, no more cameras. No more photos." She picked up her bag, slung it over her shoulder, and walked toward the exit. Just before she pushed the door open, she turned back. "If I win," she said, "I want you to clap like I'm a stranger." He smiled. "And if you lose?" She didn't answer, because deep down, they both knew she wouldn't. The ballroom smelled like old carpet glue and tension. Rows of folding tables lined up under flickering chandeliers, each one topped with plastic chessboards, beat-up clocks, and scorebooks already creased at the corners. It wasn't glamorous. It was real, and Jasmine Carter was here to prove she belonged. She stood at the entrance with her badge clutched tight in one hand. It read Carter, J, no titles, no company. No sponsors, just a name and a reason. She wore a plain navy blouse, clean sneakers, and a face that didn't flinch. But under the surface, her stomach twisted like a rook stuck on the wrong side of the board. Across the room, Julian Carter walked in. No tailored suit. Just jeans and a hoodie. He didn't approach her, didn't make a scene. He nodded once. She nodded back. That was enough. The first match was against a club player from Evanston, middle seat, confident. The kind of man who liked to talk between moves. "Well," he said, smiling, "brave of you to enter. I love stories like this." She didn't answer. He opened with the Caro Can. She cracked it wide open by move 18. By move 27, he resigned. She signed the sheet. He didn't meet her eyes. The second game was tougher. A teenage girl, fast and aggressive. Jasmine played quiet, patient. She let the girl run wild across the board, then trapped her in a net of pawns and bishops so tight the clock ran out before she could breathe. 2 wins. 0 smiles. No celebration, just control. Between rounds, she passed a group near the refreshment table.
One man leaned toward another. "Is that the janitor from the Veritas thing?" His friend snorted. "She's not really self-made."
You know how these stories go, some rich guy gets involved, and suddenly, boom, prodigy.
Jasmine didn't break stride, but their voices stuck like thumbtacks in her spine. She found an empty hallway and leaned against the wall. Deep breath. Out. In. Out. Her hands were steady. Her heart wasn't. This wasn't just chess anymore. This was proof that she wasn't here because of a headline, or a photo, or a man. She was here because she'd earned the right. Julian, across the hall in his own match, felt the pressure too. Not from the game, but from the whispers. He's mentoring a janitor. Must be some kind of rebrand. He's playing the diversity card. He heard it all. He didn't respond. He just played, and lost his second match of the day to a Latvian master with an endgame style like a guillotine. He didn't mind. He wasn't here for trophies. He was here for clarity. That evening, after her last match, Jasmine sat in the lobby alone. The hotel was old, smelled like waxed wood and watered-down perfume. She didn't see Julian until he spoke. "You looked good in there." She didn't look up. "I felt tight." He sat beside her. "You played like you'd already won. I played like I had something to lose." They didn't speak for a moment. Then she asked quietly, "Why are you still here?" He took a second before answering. "Because I think this might be the first time I've ever cared who wins besides myself." She gave him a look. He corrected. "Okay, maybe the second time." The second day came like a storm, louder, sharper. Reporters circled, spectators whispered. The pressure wrapped itself around Jasmine like a wet coat. Her third-round opponent was a former college champion, sharp suit, sharper tongue. He commented on her posture, her hand speed, even her hair. She said nothing. By move 14, she sacrificed a bishop to control the center. By move 23, he realized too late he'd walked into a trap. She moved her rook and said softly, "Check." He scoffed. "That's not check." She looked at him. "Look again." He looked. His face froze. Then, silence. He signed the sheet. Didn't shake her hand. She didn't ask him to. That night, the semi-final list went up. Julian made the cut, barely. Jasmine was ranked second overall. Their boards would be side by side. As she stared at the list, someone walked past behind her. A voice said, just loud enough to hear, "If she wins, it's because someone let her." She turned, but the hallway was already full of moving shadows. No one stopped long enough to own it. She didn't chase them. She didn't need to. She didn't sleep that night. Not really. The hotel ceiling stared back at her, yellowed and flickering like a broken thought. She rolled onto her side. Thought about her mom. Her dad's hand calloused and cracked moving pawns on a plastic board in a park after night shift. She thought about the little girls in the rec center. Naomi, who once cried when she lost, then wiped her tears and said, "I want to try again." That's who she was playing for. Not for applause. Not even for Julian, for the kid who would grow up and say, "She did it, so maybe I can too." In the morning, she stood at the mirror, tied her braid back, laced her sneakers, and walked out the door not as the underdog, but as a threat. The air in the ballroom felt electric, not loud, not chaotic. Just full. Every camera lens seemed to blink. Every seat was taken. Every whisper felt sharpened like a blade. This was the final day of the Chicago Open, and Jasmine Carter wasn't just in the tournament anymore. She was the story. She entered the room without fanfare, just that same calm walk. Just that same braid tucked behind one ear. She wore her usual navy blouse, same sneakers. No sponsors, no logo, just purpose. Julian Carter was already seated at board 3. His opponent, a brutal Latvian master known for squeezing players in the endgame. He looked up and nodded as Jasmine passed. No smile, just that quiet acknowledgement between people who had survived their own storms. Jasmine sat down at board 4. Her opponent wore a tailored grey suit that looked more Wall Street than chess club. His hair was perfect. His smile wasn't. "Ready, Miss Carter?" he said smoothly, offering a hand. She shook it. "I've been ready." The clock started. She opened with E4. He countered with an aloof D6 playing coy, testing her nerves. She didn't blink. By move 10, the center was tense. By move 18, she gave up a pawn, on purpose, a trap. By move 30, he realized it, but too late. His king was sealed into a corner, surrounded by his own misplaced defense. Move 43, he tipped his king forward. Checkmate. The room rippled. A murmur. A stir. From the corner of her eye, she saw Julian lose his own match. But when their eyes met, he smiled. And then he clapped. Once, twice. Then louder, until the entire ballroom followed. Reporters surged forward. Officials handed Jasmine a crystal plaque that caught the light like a spotlight. She didn't hold it up. She didn't beam. She just stood there, solid still. She looked over at Julian. He mouthed, "Like a stranger." She nodded. That night, the banquet hall was glowing. Too bright, too loud, too many forks. Champagne, flashbulbs, imported cheese. Everywhere she turned, someone was saying the words inspirational and representation with rehearsed sincerity. She stood near the back, untouched glass of ginger ale in one hand, the trophy resting awkwardly on a linen-covered table beside her. She stared at her name etched into the plaque like it didn't quite belong to her. Julian slipped through the crowd, found her. "You okay?" he asked. "I've never been in a room with this much lobster and this many fake smiles." He laughed softly. "You changed the board, Jasmine," she exhaled. "Then why do I feel like I just became a different kind of pawn?" Before he could respond, a man in a perfect suit appeared beside them. Charles Whitmore, the governor of Illinois. He extended a hand, politician polished. "Miss Carter, your story has moved this entire state," he said warmly. "We'd love to partner with you. Educational initiative. A speaking tour, maybe?" Jasmine looked at him for a long second. "You mean," she said flatly, "you want to put me on a bus and have me tell classrooms full of kids how I got lucky?" The governor hesitated. "Well, I wouldn't say lucky. You're exceptional." "I've always been exceptional," she said, voice steady. "You just never noticed until now." He excused himself quickly. Julian chuckled. "You didn't have to burn him like that." "I didn't burn him," she said. "I lit the truth and left it there." She turned to Julian. "I want to leave. Yeah, let's go. No more interviews, no more speeches." They slipped out through a side door, past catering staff and stage lights, into the cool Chicago night. The city felt honest outside, air crisp. The sound of traffic distant. They walked along the river in silence, just two people. No CEO, no underdog, just human. "I'm proud of you," he said at last. "I didn't do it for you." "I know." They stopped by the railing, watching fairy lights reflect off the water. "I used to walk this path after janitor shifts," Jasmine said quietly. "Just to remind myself that I was still part of something bigger than bleach and tile." She turned to him. "And now? I don't know. Winning felt good. But it also felt like the second people clapped, they stopped listening." Julian considered that. "You think they're listening now?" She shook her head. "No. I think they're watching. It's not the same." He leaned on the railing. "Then make them listen. Do something they can't ignore." She pulled her jacket tighter. "What? Start a YouTube channel? Write a memoir? From mops to mastery?" He smirked. "I was thinking something quieter." "Something permanent." She raised an eyebrow. I want you to run the Youth Chess Initiative, full-time. Board position, salary, your own team. Her eyes narrowed. Is this another favor? No, this is repayment. He paused. For every game you beat me. For every kid who saw you and realized they didn't have to disappear. She looked away. Do you really believe that? I believe, he said, that you're not done yet, and I don't want to be the reason you fade back into the shadows. She didn't answer right away. Just stood still, hands tucked in her pockets, knuckles white from the cold. Then finally she nodded once. All right, she said, but on one condition. Name it. No more cameras. No more staged interviews. No endorsements. Just the work. He held out his hand. Deal. She shook it. They stood there a moment longer, no rush to leave. Then she said softly, You know, I never played that final game for glory. He nodded. I know. I played it so a girl like me wouldn't have to wait tables in the back of a ballroom while someone else took credit for her brilliance. He looked at her, eyes filled with something beyond pride. You didn't just win, Jasmine. You redefined the game. The gymnasium smelled like floor wax and sunlight. Folding tables were set in rows. Mismatched plastic chessboards covered each one, some cracked at the corners, others faded from years of use. Children's voices echoed, bouncing off the high windows, full of curiosity, full of hope. Jasmine Carter stood at the center of it all, clipboard in one hand, eyes scanning like a general before a battle. Only this battlefield was made of plastic kings and cardboard clocks. All right, everyone, she called out, her voice clear but warm. Pawns to the center. We start in 10. A wave of excitement moved through the group like wind through leaves. It had been exactly 32 days since she'd won the Chicago Open. Not that she was counting, not anymore. The trophy sat boxed away in a storage closet at the non-profit office, gathering dust beside a broken air purifier and a stack of unused pamphlets. She didn't need it on a shelf. The work was the reminder. 2 weeks ago, she officially became Director, Chicago Youth Chess Initiative. A title too long for the badge on her lanyard, but one she wore like armor. Coach Jasmine, a voice called out. She turned to see Naomi Brooks, her lanky 9-year-old student with the wild imagination and the even wilder night openings. Naomi waved a worksheet in the air. I beat Jamal in 4 moves yesterday. Are you sure he wasn't asleep? Jasmine teased. Naomi giggled. I even did that back rank mate thing you showed us. Jasmine smiled. Then you're officially dangerous. As she turned back to the room, she noticed him, leaning against the far wall, hands in his pockets. Watching quietly, like he belonged to the background now, Julian Carter. He had become a regular. Never during instruction, never in the way, just present. Sometimes with new boards, sometimes with snacks for the kids, always without announcements. To the staff, he was just that tall donor guy who always loses to Coach Jasmine after class. And that was exactly how he liked it. When the kids finally spilled out into the hallway, backpacks slung, voices trailing, Jasmine approached him. You lurking again? He shrugged. I prefer the term monitoring strategic deployment, she smirked. You just like watching them get better than you. Guilty. They walked together toward the tiny staff kitchen. He poured her coffee without asking. She took it without thanks. It had become habit. Like they'd done this 100 times before. How's the non-profit board treating you? She asked. Like I'm a science experiment, he said. They don't understand, but they can't stop funding. She chuckled. They want a public campaign, he added. Profiles, interviews. The Maya story, but louder. Her smile faded. And what do you think? He looked at her. I think if you want to spend the rest of your life building kids instead of brands, you should. She leaned against the counter, staring into her cup. I'm tired of being a symbol, Julian. Of being the person they point to when they want to feel good about broken systems. He nodded slowly. You're not a symbol, Jasmine. You're an engine. You keep moving, and the rest of them have to follow. She raised an eyebrow. That's a nice metaphor. I'm full of them, he said. I should have been a poet. Or a chess piece, she said, tilting her head. You'd be a rook, straight lines. No nuance. Ouch. She sipped her coffee, then asked, How are you, really? Julian paused. Different. Better, maybe. The boardroom's quieter now. My decisions are slower, more deliberate. She looked at him, part curiosity, part respect. That's either wisdom or early onset fatigue. Possibly both. He finished his cup, then said quietly, You've built something here. And I'm not just talking about the kids. She tilted her head. You built belief, structure, legacy. And you did it without making it about you. She shrugged. The minute this becomes about me, it stops being real. He nodded. Then let's keep it real. She glanced at the wall clock. I've got a parent meeting in 10 minutes. He stepped back, ready to leave. But then paused. There's something else. She looked up. There's a citywide youth invitational next month, he said. Big sponsors, big visibility. I was asked to nominate a coach to lead the Chicago team. Her brow lifted. And? I put your name down. She narrowed her eyes. Without asking? You would have said no. Exactly. He shrugged. Now you get to say yes. She sighed. Didn't argue. Didn't thank him either. That wasn't how they worked. As he turned to go, she called after him. Why are you still showing up? He stopped at the door, then turned, gesturing toward the classroom behind her. Because this, he said softly, is the best thing I've ever been lucky enough to stand beside. She watched the door swing shut behind him, then turned back to the demo board at the front of the gym. A single pawn piece still stood on it, left out from earlier practice. She picked it up, rolled it between her fingers. The plastic was warm from the sun. Then, carefully, she placed it on the 8th rank, the end of the board. The beginning of everything else. The auditorium was older than most of the students sitting in it. The stage lights flickered. Ceiling tiles were stained at the edges, and the folding chairs creaked every time someone shifted. But none of that mattered. Because the room was full of kids, full of parents, full of pride. It was the final ceremony of the citywide Youth Chess Invitational, and Jasmine Carter stood just off stage, adjusting the collar of her navy blazer like it still didn't quite belong to her. Her shoes were polished. Her hands still carried the scent of hand sanitizer and chalkboard dust. The name tag pinned to her chest didn't say custodial staff anymore. It said, Coach Jasmine Carter, Director, Chicago Youth Chess Initiative. She wasn't used to seeing it in print. She wasn't used to being seen at all. On stage, the MC Logan Pierce cleared his throat. And now, before we close today's ceremony, we'd like to recognize someone who made all of this possible. Jasmine's stomach twisted. No, 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 she whispered, but the spotlight was already moving. Please welcome to the stage, Coach Jasmine Carter. Applause broke out. Not the polite kind, the real kind. Kids jumped to their feet. Parents clapped hard enough to sting. Even the volunteers in the back, who had spent the whole afternoon stacking chairs, stood to honor her. And near the back wall, standing still with a coffee in hand, was Julian Carter, clapping slow and steady. The one person who always saw her before anyone else did. Jasmine stepped onto the stage. The podium mic was too tall. She adjusted it without a joke. No performance. Just truth. I didn't come here to be seen, she began. I came here because I thought, if I could help one kid believe they were more than what their neighborhood, their school, or their past told them, then that would be enough. The room stilled. But you've all shown me that I was aiming too small. You don't just want to believe. You want to build. And you have. She paused. There was a time, not that long ago, when the only thing people noticed about me was the cart I pushed. Not my name. Not my mind. Certainly not my game. Scattered nods. A few misty eyes. But the beauty of chess, she said, voice firm now, is that even the smallest piece can change the entire board, if it's brave enough to cross it. A beat. Then, thunderous applause. After the ceremony, Jasmine slipped behind the curtain. She wasn't hiding. She just needed a moment to breathe. To fold the noise into something she could carry. She didn't expect Julian to be there, leaning against a stack of stage props. 2 paper cups in hand. I figured you wouldn't want champagne, he said. She took the coffee with a grateful nod. You figured right. They sat on a stairwell backstage, the echoes of applause still humming through the curtain. You did it, he said. She smiled faintly. We did it. No, he said. You did. You're really bad at letting people deflect credit. I'm in recovery. They sipped in silence. Until he asked, What's next? Jasmine looked down at the cup in her hand. More kids. More boards. More mornings where someone doesn't think they can win until they do, he nodded. And you? She shrugged. I'll keep showing up. Keep listening. Keep moving forward. Julian reached into his coat pocket. I have something for you, he said. She raised an eyebrow. If it's another foundation plaque with my face on it, I swear I'll throw it in the river. He laughed, then handed her a small box. Inside was a single carved chess piece. A queen, made of polished black walnut. On its base, 5 words were engraved. Every move you made mattered. Jasmine stared at it for a long moment. Her voice softened. I'm not used to keepsakes. Julian looked at her. You should be. You're someone worth remembering. She closed the box gently. The click of the lid was soft but final. Thank you. They stood together, neither in a hurry. Before they parted, he asked, Do you ever regret it? Regret what? Sitting down that night. Taking that first match. She shook her head. No, I regret every day before that night, when I convinced myself I didn't deserve to. Outside, the sun was dipping low. The city breathed on without fireworks or fanfare, but something had shifted, not in the skyline, not in the news headlines, but in the hearts of the kids who had seen her and believed they had a place on the board too, and in the heart of one woman who had finally stopped walking with her head down. Later that night, Jasmine returned home. She didn't bring the trophy. She didn't need it. It was just glass, but she did carry one thing back. The wooden queen. She placed it gently beside the old pawn piece that had lived on her table for years. 2 pieces, one a beginning, one becoming. The hallway smelled like old books and Crayola markers. A chess clock beeped somewhere down the hall, and sneakers squeaked across linoleum. It was 7:58 a.m. on a Saturday, and Jasmine Carter was already walking the rows of folding tables, checking for missing pieces and loose chair legs. This was her new morning routine. Her new battleground. Her new calling. She didn't need trophies anymore. Didn't need recognition. What she needed, what she fought for now were the kids. The ones who came in shy and left asking for a rematch. The ones who thought they couldn't think ahead until she taught them how to see 5 moves deep. Naomi Brooks tugged on her sleeve. Coach Jasmine? Jasmine turned, already smiling. Naomi held up a worksheet with a scribbled board diagram. I got Marcus in 6 moves yesterday, and I didn't even trap my own knight this time. Jasmine knelt down. 6 moves, huh? Naomi nodded, beaming. I even fianchettoed. Jasmine raised her eyebrows. Okay, now you're just showing off. Naomi giggled and ran back to her table. In the corner of the gym, standing behind a pillar like he didn't belong, was Julian Carter. Same dark jacket, same quiet presence. Same paper cup of coffee in hand. He had been there nearly every Saturday since the program expanded, not as a leader, not as a boss, but as something rarer, a steady witness. After class, While the kids burst out the door like confetti, Jasmine walked over. You lurking again? I prefer the term passive supervision. She narrowed her eyes. You just like watching them beat you after class. Guilty. They walked together into the staff kitchen, barely bigger than a closet. He handed her a coffee. She took it without thanks. Habit. How's the board treating you? She asked. Confused mostly, Julian replied. They keep asking why we're not running a public campaign. She took a sip. And what do you tell them? That the story's still being written. She looked at him. A quiet pause passed between them. They want to take this national, he added. Interviews. Video features. Some kind of docuseries. Her expression didn't change. And what do you think? I think if you want to spend the next 10 years building kids, instead of building your brand, then you should. She set the coffee down slowly. I'm tired of being their symbol, Julian. Their poster girl for look how far one can come. You're not a symbol. You're an engine. You move. They follow. She studied him. That sounds like something you practiced in the car. He smiled. I may have rehearsed it once. The following week, Julian showed up again. Quietly, he helped unpack boards, set up clocks, even cleaned up after snack time, apple juice spills and all. The staff had stopped being surprised. To them, he was just Julian, the tall guy who always lost to Coach Jasmine and brought good granola bars. One afternoon, as she finished a workshop with a group of middle schoolers, Jasmine spotted Naomi watching a YouTube video on her tablet. A clip of her Chicago Open win. Someone had added dramatic music and overused slow-motion effects. Naomi looked up. Coach Jasmine, that's you! You crushed that guy! Jasmine chuckled. I didn't crush him. He just didn't know how to guard his king. Naomi tilted her head. Did that win make you famous? Jasmine thought for a second. No. It made me responsible. After the kids left, she sat on the edge of the stage. Julian walked over. I heard you got nominated for another award. She groaned. I swear, if I have to wear heels one more time... You don't have to accept. She looked up. But then who speaks for the ones who never get invited to these rooms? He nodded. You always ask the hard questions. She shrugged. I live in the answers. He sat beside her. There's something coming up, he said. A National Scholarship Foundation is launching a chess division. They're asking for someone to serve on the selection committee. Someone who knows what talent looks like before it's polished. She looked at him. Are you asking me? I'm recommending you. She leaned back. Another title? No. Another spotlight? Nope. Then, what is it? A chance, he said simply. To keep the gate open for kids who wouldn't even know it exists. She exhaled slowly, then nodded. Before leaving that day, Jasmine returned to the front of the gym. The demo board still had 2 pieces on it from the morning's lesson, a rook and a pawn. She picked up the pawn and turned it in her fingers. The plastic was worn at the edges, familiar. She moved it square by square until it reached the last rank. Then placed a queen beside it, her quiet reminder that the journey was still happening. For her, for them, for everyone who had ever been told, stay in your place. The auditorium buzzed like a hive. Not loud, not chaotic, just alive. Rows of chairs were packed with families, students, teachers, and city officials. The final match of the Regional Youth Championship had ended hours ago. But the energy in the room hadn't left. Because this wasn't just a tournament. This was the first event led by the Chicago Youth Chess Initiative. And at the edge of the stage, behind the curtain, stood Jasmine Carter. She wore a clean navy blazer, same sneakers. Her name tag still read, Coach Jasmine Carter Director, CYCI. But today, something about the way it caught the light felt different. More permanent, more hers. The kids she'd coached all season were clustered in the first two rows, grinning, fidgeting, trading stories about bad openings and brilliant traps. Tasha, Naomi's younger cousin, had placed in the top 5. Jasmine told her that morning, "Win or lose, you made the board yours." And now she could see it. In every glance, every posture, they believed they belonged. Logan Pierce, now the city's official youth programs rep, stepped up to the mic. He cleared his throat and smiled. "And now, to close out today's event, we'd like to invite someone who's changed what it means to lead from the center of the board." The spotlight shifted. Please welcome Coach Jasmine Carter. Applause rose, louder than she expected, louder than she was ready for. But she walked up anyway, step by step, not fast. Not hesitant, just steady. The mic was too tall again. She adjusted it, then looked out. Not at officials. Not at funders. At the kids. "I didn't come here to be seen," she began. "I came because I know what it's like. To be the only one in the room who knows what you're capable of. To push a cart down a hallway while people talk over you. To be the story no one tells." She paused, then smiled gently. "But I also know what happens when one person gives you a game and you decide to play it like your life depends on it." The room hushed. Not from politeness, from resonance. "There was a time," she continued, "when I thought all I'd ever be was the one cleaning up after other people's strategy. But the truth is, even pawns have power. And if you walk far enough, if you survive long enough, you get to choose who you become." Thunderous applause again, but this time she didn't step back. "Not yet. You don't need a sponsor to be brilliant. You don't need a platform to be seen. You don't even need to win, you just need to play honestly. Play with your whole self." She looked to her left where Naomi sat clutching her scorebook. "Because one day someone will look at your game and realize they have more to give too." This time, when she stepped away from the mic, she didn't look for applause. She looked for understanding, and she found it in the nods, in the wet eyes, in the kids standing just a little taller. Behind the curtain, she exhaled and found Julian Carter waiting, holding 2 coffees. "You knew I didn't want champagne," she said. He handed her the cup. "You've never needed bubbles to celebrate." They sat on the side stairs backstage. No cameras, no press. Just 2 people, just quiet. "You crushed it," he said. She took a sip. "I didn't come to crush it. I came to ground it." He raised an eyebrow. "You getting poetic on me now?" "Maybe," he laughed. "Maybe I'm rubbing off. Let's hope not too much." They sat for a while. Then he reached into his coat. "I have something else for you," he said. Jasmine frowned. "If it's another plaque?" "It's not." He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "We want you to help design the National Mentorship Program, not as a consultant, as its architect." Jasmine stared at it, then looked up. "You knew about this. I advocated for it. I didn't ask you to." "I know." She folded the letter. "You still have a habit of moving without asking." He smirked. "You taught me to read ahead." She sighed, then smiled. "I'll think about it. That's all I ask." Later that evening, Jasmine returned home. The lights were off. The apartment still smelled faintly of mint tea and dry erase markers. She walked over to her small table near the window. On it sat 2 chess pieces, a pawn and a queen. She stared at them for a long time. Then, without a word, added a 3rd piece, a rook. Steady, sharp, silent. A reminder that she didn't need to be flashy to move powerfully. That the game wasn't about rising above others, it was about bringing others with you. Outside, the city pulsed and flickered, indifferent as always. But inside this quiet space, Jasmine Carter understood something clearly. She hadn't been playing for a title. She had been playing for a future. And now, It was her move. In a world where job titles and appearances often define a person's worth, Jasmine Carter's story reminds us that dignity doesn't come from status, it comes from character. As a cleaning woman overlooked and dismissed, Jasmine didn't raise her voice in protest. She sat down at the chessboard and let her actions speak. That quiet strength, not loud anger, was her revolution. The message is simple but powerful. Never underestimate someone because of their silence, their uniform, or their position in life. This story also teaches us that true change isn't sparked by outrage alone, but by patience, wisdom, and quiet resilience. For older adults who have faced their share of battles, it's a reminder that legacy isn't built by spotlight moments, it's shaped by the lives we lift up, the doors we open, and the courage to play the long game. Like Jasmine, sometimes the most important move we make isn't for ourselves, but for the ones who come after us.